Hello all, Lena Hayes here. Today I wanted to record a short video and show you how to make your own stamps. One of the things that I love about clay is its ability to record mark. And a lot of people use store-bought stamps, found texture to add their texture to clay. So today I would like to show you how to make complex or very simple stamps using clay. Let's get started. Before we begin our stamp making process, let's quickly talk about a clay that you might want to select for this process. If you're looking to create something very fine, something that has very fine lines, it might be a good idea to use a clay that does not have any particles or sand in it. So like a B-mix without sand, for example, or porcelain would be good choices. Okay, so before we begin using our imagery, what you will want to do is you will want to make these simple blank stamps, okay, that you're going to carve and then press into clay. So here I have several sizes that I made. If you look at my imagery, I selected fig. So I found this graphic image on Shutterstock. Okay, you can go and look there. I like this image because it's black and white, it's very graphic, it's slightly abstracted. The reason why I'm thinking fig is because it's September, I have a fig tree in my backyard, and I'm fighting with squirrels over them at the moment because they're eating them all. So I think that's why I selected the fig. Also, I like this sort of nod to mid-century modern, which is what I often use for my work. I use mid-century modern references for my own work. So let's get started. So these here are already pre-made. I went ahead and I made them, but I wanted to show you how I make these. So we're gonna start with a loose, sort of a wide coil. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna chop off one side, okay, to create a flat surface. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and just tap it on a flat surface. Okay, so now I have one flat side. Okay, so I don't need all this clay. This is way too much clay. But so what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start pinching the sides and moving this all the way around. Now the clay stamp size that I will be using is roughly around the size of a quarter. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. Obviously, you can make whatever size stamps you want. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just remove all this extra clay and save it for another stamp. And here I'm just gonna keep refining this form until I am happy with the results. I'm kind of looking for something to be a little bit neat, you know, something a little neater looking, something that has a handle that I can grip when I need to press this into the surface, so that way it will be comfortable for me to use. So one of the things you may want to consider when making these is this is going to be a stamp you're going to use all the time. It's going to be your workhorse. So you don't want to have any areas that are too thin or too sharp. You don't want to have to press this into your clay and then have it break on you after only a couple of uses. So a good idea is to leave a little bit of a thick lip, and I like to run my finger along the edge so there's no sharp points that could potentially break off. Also, this is going to be your carving surface. So you can see I have little marks here, which I don't want to see when I'm carving. So before I let this dry and set up to leather hard, I'm going to take my metal rib and I'm going to compress and get rid of any sort of finger marks or blemishes or anything that might have gotten on the surface that will later register as part of my stamp. Also, another thing for you to consider, this is a fairly flat stamp, okay? It doesn't have any sort of a curve whatsoever. It's just flat. So this shape would be excellent if I wanted to stamp a lot of tiles, or if I was working with a flat slab, okay, then I would use this. If you like stamping on a rounded surface, okay, like a vase, something that has a curve, okay, then it would be a good idea to take your stamp and to go ahead and press it into a curve. So when you go to press it into your object, your walls, the sides of your stamp, are not jamming and cutting into the surface before your stamp even has an opportunity to get there. So now this stamp is curved to match a rounded surface. So if I'm stamping a cup, it'll fit it much, much better. Okay, so here, what I need to do is I need to let these little stamps set up. This is a flat one. This one, as you can see, is curved. I'm gonna let these guys hang out and get to that wonderful leather hard stage, and that is when I will begin my carving. Now that our stamp has had some time to set up, and now it's at the leather hard stage, so when I go to press into it, it no longer has a give, but if I press it to bring it to my cheek, it feels cold to the touch. So here I cut out my fig image, and I'm going to place it onto the stamp. Now the way I figure it is the parts that are white on the paper are going to be carved in. The parts that are black are going to be left out. So here I'm just going to go ahead and trace this drawing with a pencil. So I'm pressing it just enough to get an imprint on the other side of the paper is the goal. Now I don't have to circle every single little seed, but I will go ahead and just mark where the seeds are for my reference. And then I'm just going to carve them out. So I'm just trying to get a loose idea of where the image will go. And now I'm just going to mark. Actually, you know what? I am going to put little ovals now that I think about it, because I don't want to indent. Actually, it doesn't matter. I can indent it now that I think about it, Because the white parts are going to be the ones that are going to be carved out. And then because they're going to be carved out, when I press the stamp, the white little areas for the seeds are going to be raised. So it's the opposite. Okay? Now when I peel this off, you can get a pretty good idea of where to carve. I'd like to discuss carving tools with you for a moment. There's a variety of different carving tools. For a stamp such as the one I will be working on, I am going to want to get as fine a line as possible. So I may even consider using an X-Acto knife. This here is a dental tool. This is an excellent little tool that I can press clay into. It would make an excellent mark. This tool is a favorite that I've been using for quite some time. It is made by Kemper. This here is a very fine little wire that runs along, so this makes excellent fine carvings. Okay, then I also have a couple of these metal loop tools. There's quite a few carving tools. Of course, this is your standard trimming tool that you can also use as a carving tool. So from here on out, after I trace my line, I'm going to assess what is the best tool for me to use at first. So for here, so as I mentioned, just as a reminder, I mentioned to myself that I'm going to carve out the whites, which is right here, the inside. So for something like this, because I want such a fine line, I would go ahead and I would go in with my X-Acto knife because I want this to be clean. I don't want this to look organic at all. So I'm gonna go in, and if I forget or if I get confused, I can always come back to my image. Requires some precision. And we'll do the same thing around the other part. And I'm using my traced line loosely because as I'm noticing it, perfect. So I want to just use it as a guide, more or less, not the exact image. Okay, so now that I went ahead and I outlined that, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing with the outside of the fig black line. Now remember what I mentioned about this being your workhorse and that you don't want there to be lines that are too thin? Well, same with this. Make sure that you have a significant amount of clay that you can comfortably make an imprint. Okay, so this right here is a start. So from this point, I will make an assessment. I'm going to give it a try and see which ones of these tools would be best suited. So I'm already seeing this right here is the tool for me. So as you can tell, as I'm carving into this section here, okay, you can see that the clay is just coming off my tool. Okay, it doesn't gum up on the tool. If you try to carve a stamp and the clay is just sticking to your tool, chances are it is too wet. So wait a little while longer. meditative to carve clay. I love this type of detail work. I love taking the time to just quietly and patiently carve and refine. So I'm taking clay off slowly and carefully, because as you can imagine, once you carve it away, you can't put it back. So now that I carved some of that away, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna try a different tool. And now I'm just gonna do the wall of this piece. So now I have a nice deep, clean line. Okay. So I will just continue. Doing that. I'm going to return back to my little tool here because I need this fine little area. Now I'm going to speed it along. So now that I have a pretty good impression of my stamp, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get some water. I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna brush. Now remember I said this is better for clay with no sand in it, right? So now I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna brush any imperfections off. So this will give me a nice loving the way this is looking already. You got rid of any little marks or any carving areas that were not quite finished or refined. That just took care of it for me. So now, what you would do with this stamp is you would let this completely dry and you would fire it to bisque temperature. It doesn't really matter which, 04, 05, 06 cones would work. You know, these stamps are not picky as long as they're bisque temperature. So here you are. Here is your finished stamp. Make sure you put your signature on it somewhere on the stamp here, so that way you know it's your stamp and no one can steal it from you. So, you know, these stamps, while they're a lot of fun to make, and I will show you a stamp surface so you can see what they look like at the end. But, you know, the beautiful thing about stamps or playing with texture, it doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be a stamp like this. I wanted to show you this type of stamp, but you can also do something very simple. This is a wonderful way to experiment. You know, you could just make marks here. I'm just gonna, you know, carve away random markings, right? So it doesn't have to be long or complicated. It could be simple. Also, you may have seen me working on a roller earlier. Okay, so this is what the finished product looks like. You make a roller and then you carve lines out of it, and then you roll it onto your clay. So let's see how these work. I wanted to show you some of the finished bisque stamps that I've already made that have been fired to see what they look like. So here is a flamingo. Also, this is just a little curly cute flower. You know, clay is just so much fun to play with and to test out different textures on. Here is a roller that you can make. It's already been bisque fired. You can use that sort of texture. You can do other type of rollers, like a wheel with a little thumb hold, so you can go ahead and roll those in. And then I know I shouldn't try out the fig stamp yet because we just made it and it's not dry yet, but I can't wait and I'm impatient. So I'm curious as to what it looks like. So let's see if it works. I'm gonna try not to press it too hard. It works, there it is. So what's really cool is that I carved it far enough away from the edge so that when I press it, it doesn't leave a mark. So this is kind of what I'm looking for. Now I can just go to town and have these little figgies everywhere. Yay! Figs, 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 figs. Hey, did you like the video? If you did, hit like and subscribe for more awesome videos on ceramics.